usually when you're going undercover, and I've done a lot of undercover work, you're not approaching the most media-savvy people in the country.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
No,
Lobbyists
these are
know
people,
their way around the media.
These are people who part of their job is kind of trying to be media experts. So the type of people that would definitely read the Times. So it was kind of a bold thing to do to try and go undercover, but we thought there were grounds here and it was important that we tried. And we didn't know exactly how it would go.
So talk me through it. How did you go undercover?
What we eventually decided to do was we set up a fake company, and we set up a quite nice-looking website, I thought, for this company, posing as advisors. We thought it wouldn't be believable if we were advisors of a new UK firm, because why would no one have heard of us in the industry? So we decided that it would be a company that was based in Ghana and that was looking to introduce business people, ambitious and successful business people from what's often termed the global south, or specifically actually West Africa, and trying to link them to people in the UK because they want to invest in the UK. It was a slightly offbeat idea, but we thought, sometimes those kind of ideas work best. Why not kind of go for it? And I worked on it with David Wood, who's a colleague whose family is of Ghanaian descent. So he was able to really help out with making all that stuff believable and making sure that we had in conversations, if anything came up, cultural references in Ghana, things like that. He was totally on top of that. And we had aliases, and we had fake business cards, and we had phone answering and office service in Accra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we went for it. And we emailed the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and in particular a guy called Jerry McFall, who is the director of the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and is very open about his very close ties to Labour and the Labour Party, but also is a director at Bradshaw Advisory.
Right.
He's a lobbyist.
And he's involved with the Labour Infrastructure Forum.
Yes. And we sent an email saying that we had a new client who was a business person from West Africa who was involved in the drinks industry and looking to massively expand, looking to do business in the UK. And
did they respond?
Well, it was interesting because I emailed this guy, Jerry McFall, who runs the Labour Infrastructure Forum, at his Labour Infrastructure Forum email address. Quite soon afterwards, the same day, I got a phone call on the kind of pay-as-you-go phone I had for this undercover, my undercover alias. And it was Jerry McFall. I actually initially missed the call, and then he left a voicemail, and I called him back.
Jerry speaking.
Hi, Jerry. One of the things that came up from it was that grey area between this organisation and lobbying, or the Labour Party at the moment and lobbying, because I'd got in touch at this Labour email address, the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and he called back and quite quickly was saying to me, oh, no, you don't want to do anything with the Labour Infrastructure Forum, but this might be something for my private lobbying company.
Well, let's have a conversation. It's not Labour Infrastructure Forum, it's a Bradshaw Advisory piece. So you're looking for a policy and a lobbying effort on an issue.
He was saying that the Labour Infrastructure Forum was interested in working with well-known brands that had something established and serious to offer. So it wasn't something that was right for the company that I was approaching him on behalf of. It talks about how the Labour Infrastructure Forum proposed policy changes and things like that. So this wouldn't be appropriate for a smaller foreign company. But on the call, he also suggested that his firm, Bradshaw Advisory, might be able to help the West African businessman.
What was he able to promise he could provide?
Well, so I should say that he was absolutely clear that you can't just get in touch with ministers with a shoddy case. That would damage his reputation long term. It wouldn't do anyone any benefit. He advised us to be careful about anyone who promised us that they could get access. He talked about the fact that you really have to think about what you're wanting to do. If there's a policy area you're interested in finding out more about, having to have a really strong business case. And he described having a hook in order to try and get people's attention.
You need to have some kind of pull, and you need to have a hook. So your hook's your sort of policy work.
And, the different things that you can do as a company approaching people looking to invest in the UK. But he also very quickly was dropping names.
So you might want to speak to Special Advisors of the Treasury, the Exchequer, Secretary to Treasury, James Murray, I think. and you look to speak to like Johnny Reynolds in the Department of International Trade, Varun Chandra in number 10 at the office from...
He named James Murray, who's a very senior person, the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, and mentioned that one of his colleagues at Bradshaw Advisory used to work for him. He even talked about Jonathan Reynolds, who's the Business Secretary, and Varun Chandra, who is one of Sir Keir Starmer's advisors. So he's talking about people right at the top.
That's interesting. So he's, on the one hand, he's saying he can't promise access. On the other hand, he's name-dropping all the key people that you, if you were a West African company, would really want to be able to speak to.
Well, you'd be thinking, wow, this guy's ambitious. Well, we've approached out of nowhere. We're a company no one's ever heard of. And you're saying that potentially we could meet these people?
Yeah.
What was slightly frustrating about the call is that I wanted to find out more about the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and he really didn't want to go there. You know, he was basically saying the Labour Infrastructure Forum is for really big name companies, British brands,
right,
who have like a really compelling case to be put in front of these people. So he was saying it wasn't one for the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and was very much more keen on talking to me about the idea that we could work with Bradshaw Advisory. I asked him about costs. You probably have different packages, but what kind of amount are we talking about in terms of how much you charge for your services to help shape that whole thing? And he said the fee was about, I think he said something like 16 or 17.
Well, it depends. It depends on what the client is. You know, say our average monthly is about 16, 17.
And when you talk about, just to be clear, monthly 16, 17, do you mean 1,600?
No, 1,000.
16, 17,000. Wow, a month. Okay.
A month?
Yeah.
16 or 17,000 a month?
That's how much people are paying these companies because of the benefits that it can give them. Actually, the most important thing to come from that call was that he mentioned previous work he'd done with a huge American energy company that's a big player in the nuclear world called Holtec. And he just mentioned that, Holtec, they've met all the key people in government, and they, at Labour Party conference last year, they had a meeting with Johnny Reynolds, who we know as Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, but he referred to him as Johnny Reynolds.
For example, Holtec, I've met all the key people in government, met Johnny Reynolds, conference last year to discuss inward investment, those opportunities.
So his client Holtec had met, he said, the business secretary at Labour Party conference last year. He was also keen to say that, they're a very serious company in a very serious industry, and they had a very compelling case. From his description, it wasn't just, hello, nice to meet you. He said it was to discuss inward investment, those opportunities. So this is about commercial opportunities.
Yeah.
After the call, when I then checked the ministerial records, ministers are supposed to disclose when they have commercial meetings with external parties, and there's nothing there about a meeting between Jonathan Reynolds and Holtec at Labour Party conference last year.
No mention of it at all?
No.
Ah.
And this is somewhere where there's real questions over the rules about disclosure, because generally meetings during party conferences do not need to be disclosed to the public as they don't relate to government business. It might just be a politician meeting someone and talking about political things or their local party or something like that. However, the rules do state that if these meetings held in the margins of party conferences are in an official ministerial capacity, they should be recorded and published in the normal way. But this one hasn't. We went to the Labour Party about this, and a spokesman said, in quotes, "This was a meeting at party conference that was held in a political capacity. All meetings held in a ministerial capacity are declared in the proper way, in full accordance with the rules." And as for Holtec, when I approached them for comment, a spokeswoman said that in recent years the firm had met with political figures from a range of parties. She said that updating the government's transparency disclosures was a matter for government, and the firm said it competed in a fair and open process for government support and had not supported the Labour Party or the Labour Infrastructure Forum.
That phone call wasn't Paul's only interaction with Jerry.
Towards the end of that phone call, we arranged to meet in person. But then some interesting things started to happen, and I can't know for sure, but I think he got suspicious. He realised afterwards, you put down the phone and you think, God, that guy was asking a lot of questions. And it was interesting. I got an email from him quite soon after the call again, not from his address at the Labour Infrastructure Forum, from Bradshaw Advisory, which was written in quite a formal way, which was quite interesting and made me think maybe he's on to us. He wrote, "As discussed, what you're looking for is not appropriate for the Labour Infrastructure Forum as you require advocacy/lobbying. The forum does not do that. The forum seeks sponsors and is editorially independent from commercial interests." And he instead said, the work you're requiring is more suited to Bradshaw Advisory. But he did say, let's go ahead with the meeting. Another thing that happened is I talked about that prospectus that mentioned all those sponsorship deals to meet, key policymakers, an influential Labour figure. We'd also found that there was a version of that prospectus that had been published online, but the version that was publicly available did not include the page with the sponsorship deals.
Oh.
Which is interesting in of itself.
As we were saying earlier, this is the stuff that people don't normally put down in black and white.
Exactly. But also in the 7 days, there was a week between the phone call and our in-person meeting, and in that time, that document that was online disappeared.
Ah.
So again, something had happened. But we decided to go ahead and go to the meeting and see what happened.
How did that play out?
That was...
Where were you meeting? Just describe the scene.
We met in the lobby of a hotel in central London. It is my most unusual experience of an undercover meeting, and I've done a lot of these over the last 10 years. And because it felt like one of these moments in a play where kind of everyone knows something, but no one is saying the thing. We were all kind of playing along. Now, I don't know. It might have been that he had no suspicions about this company, and it's all a coincidence. But we felt it was pretty obvious he was acting very differently to how he was on the phone.
Right.
So, as an example, on the phone call, as we know, he was willing to discuss his firm's average fees. He was willing to discuss Holtec, this previous client of his, and this meeting that he said they had with the business secretary. Suddenly, at this in-person meeting, where he also brought a colleague along, he was saying that to discuss those same things would be inappropriate.
Even though he'd already discussed them?
Exactly.
How
Suddenly
bizarre.
he was saying, "Oh no, I've just met you. I couldn't possibly name a former client," or and things like that. And he wouldn't give fees and all that kind of stuff. He gave one fee for a potential starter project, a very specific fee, but wouldn't talk about monthly fees and stuff like that. So it did feel very different. He also was he said at one point, talking about kind of specific government figures, we're not the kind of firm that talks about names and getting people, branding names about, because nobody can promise that someone's going to meet. Which I thought was really interesting, because on the phone he had named all these people, including Jonathan Reynolds. And then he and his colleague were very keen to stress. His colleague said, "We're quite a transparent country. Ministers meet you on the strength of your case. Politicians in this country are very busy people, and they're looking for effective outcomes for their brief in a highly transparent manner." So, it was all a bit stilted, this conversation. And I tried to ask about the Labour Infrastructure Forum again, and he very much passed this off as something that was totally separate from Bradshaw Advisory, and was just saying, he said, "I'm just a member of the Labour Party, just, how many members the Labour Party have, I'm one of those people."
Is he right in saying that the Labour Infrastructure Forum is entirely separate to Bradshaw Advisory?
No, because when you look, a couple of months ago, actually, the Labour Infrastructure Forum was incorporated as a company, and it's owned by an offshoot company of Bradshaw Advisory.
Paul, when you went to Jerry McFall, to Bradshaw Advisory, with questions about this, as yourself, as a journalist, what did they say?
So we spoke to Bradshaw Advisory, and it said it complied with the law and disclosure rules at all times. The company also said that it registered all clients in the normal way, including Holtec, and it pointed out that under lobbying rules, individual meetings don't have to be registered. A spokesman said, in quotes, "All matters of government competition and transparency disclosures are a matter for the government." I also got in touch with the Labour Infrastructure Forum, and they didn't share details about its sponsored events. We asked, but they said the group was committed to transparency and would have sponsorship details in its next annual report. The group described itself as a think tank. It said it was an independent legal entity to Bradshaw Advisory, and that it sought sponsorship to cover its costs, like other think tanks, and that it doesn't do lobbying. The members of its advisory council, those Labour figures, they're not paid. The spokesman said journalists attended its launch, and that the group was, in quotes, trying to boost UK growth and create well-paying jobs around the country. I asked the Labour Party and government also about details of any Labour figures who have attended private Labour Infrastructure Forum events, but they didn't provide these. According to the party, it has no connection to the Labour Infrastructure Forum and does not endorse its activities.
That's The Story from The Times and The Sunday Times. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.